When she became a princess, Twilight assumed a lot of new responsibilities. As years went by, she learned new roles as a princess, plus new magic that came from her new alicorn form. Her final, most important lesson was learning to use the sun and moon. Celestia and Lunar transfer their power to Twilight and Cadance to make it easier for them. It was during this key moment that Twilight and Cadance were at their strongest, while Celestia and Luna were at their most vulnerable. With blades made from dragon bone, Queen Chrysalis's assassins ended the lives of Equestria's beloved rulers. It was the day all of Equestria cried. The two ponies who loved all and were loved by all were taken from us. For an entire week, all of us prayed, mourned, and said our farewells. Twilight and Cadance became the new rulers of Equestria. They also still carried Celestia and Luna's magic inside of them, so part of them would always be there. But when the time for mourning ended, a time of rage began. A time for war. With justice in her heart, Twilight waged war against the changelings to avenge her mentors and end their threat once and for all. After Chrysalis's death in the war, Twilight decided to end the hatred between ponies and changelings by allowing them to live in Equestria under our rule. Supporting this was Commander Morpheus, who sided with us in the war. Twilight took her co-rule with Cadance, ruling with the same wisdom and love as Celestia and Luna. Still, there were times where Twilight had her doubts. Days she wondered if she would be just as good as those before her. But we were always there for her. We let her know we were in this together. Life went on. Twilight got married, had a kid, so did I. We went through loss and joy, but we always smiled. Even when it was down to me, Twilight, her son, Flurryheart, and my daughter 300 years later, we still smiled. All it took is one bitch to end it. Like her mentor before her, Twilight had many apprentices over the years, whether it involved rivaling Twilight in a magical ability or advancing Equestria's technological prowess. Each of them went on to do something amazing for the whole world. The one she treasured the most was Shine Bright. An orphan of unknown origin, she was the most talented unicorn we ever saw. I think she saw herself in Shine Bright. Sure enough, she took her under her wing. Shine Bright was always ready to learn. She and Twi spent hours in the library reading and learning. It was like a reflection of Twilight and Celestia. As she grew older, so did her magical skill. She was soon strong enough to face Flurryheart and Twilight's son, Arcane, in duels. We were so proud of her. She was a part of the family. Some of us thought she would act on her crush with Arcane. The feelings seemed to be mutual, and we hoped in a few years she would officially join our family. But deep inside her was a terrible and growing ambition. We would have recognized something was wrong long ago. Arcane had always been into stallions. He even had a cult friend. When Arcane first dated Shine Bright, we figured he went through a phase or was into both genders. To this day, I don't know if Shine Bright truly loved Arcane or only if she wanted to use him as a pawn. She wanted to be a princess. She wanted to be all-powerful. But even if she married Arcane, one problem stood in her way. Twilight. Twilight was an alicorn and was thus ageless. She would even outlive her son, who was only half alicorn. Unfortunately for her, Shine Bright could never be a princess while Twilight was still alive. Shine Bright must have known she had no chance against Twilight head on. She had to find some way to weaken her. The answer was in a certain spell Starlight Glimmer had created many years ago. When the time was right, she struck, and so Princess Twilight was assassinated despite the best efforts of her son and fiancé. The last of the elements was gone. Shinebright said Twilight was assassinated by some mercenary. Arcane, under her power, convinced the public she was telling the truth. All of Equestria mourned. Arcane was made the Prince of Equestria, with Flurry Heart and Cadence taking over the sun and moon. And so, the last of the elements faded into the great beyond. A month later, Shinebright and Arcane were married. Shinebright had the crown, a husband, and a kingdom with no pony to stop her. What she didn't count on was the dragon prepared to stop her. Gale Flower. She was amazing to me. I started out just babysitting her and grew to have her as my best friend. Who'd have thought the little filly I put to sleep after Story would become the mare I fell in love with? Such is the way of a long-lived species like mine. I got over my feelings for Rarity long ago. I was happy she and Applejack got together. Funny enough, that was the same place where...
I love you.
At first, I wanted to deny this feeling between us, but I couldn't help but kiss her when she said those words. Our parents took it really well. It was a shock, but they gave us their blessing. We started out with dating, moved to the bedroom, and joined in holy matrimony. I soon had a family of my own, a wife I loved, a daughter I loved. Everything was perfect. Despite the losses I suffered in life, I had plenty of magical moments too. Days of joy, pride, and love. I have always treasured them close to my heart. Yet there came a time when my family was cut short. For a long-lived being with me, time was something too precious, and before I knew it, I lost Gale. Losing Gale was hard. No pony ever replaced her in my heart. To this day, she remains the only one I married and loved with body and soul. Shortly after Gale died, I took my daughter, Jewel, to the Dragonlands. I thought of it as a good way for us to recover. Ember, Dragon Lord at the time, was there to greet us, as her husband, Garble, who finally stopped acting like a jerk, and there to greet Jewel with the Dragon Prince himself, Taryan. In an instant, we knew they had fallen for each other. Taryan was as smart and determined as his mother, but as strong as his father. It didn't take long for him and my daughter to be friends, nor did it take long for them to become a couple. Time went on, I grew up, as did my daughter. We spent our time evenly both in and out of Camelot, where Twilight had become a great leader. Until the day Jewel went to see her mother's grave, only to witness the death of Twilight. My friend, my teacher, my mother, slain by her own son who was controlled by a student she treated as a daughter. I swore on her grave that I would see her avenged. Shortly after Twilight's death, my daughter and I were being watched. Shinebright clearly saw us as a threat or suspect we knew she'd killed Twilight. Either way, we needed to escape before she could act. Jewel and I needed to get to the Dragonlands to be safe. Taryan brought in a demolition expert to help us plant explosives at a cave we visited for gems. We set them off to look like a cave-in. Too bad that not even a dragon could survive. Just like with Chrysalis, we faked our deaths to trick Shinebright into lowering her guard. And it worked. Since it was tradition for dragons to be buried in the Dragonlands, we were given over to Ember immediately. Little did she know, we left behind a parting gift. Equestria was split on who to believe. Some thought that Twilight's apprentice and son would never do such a thing. Others thought as her adopted son. I wouldn't lie. Shinebright quickly silenced all voices against her though, even though so far to declare me and my allies traitors. Thankfully, the Crystal Empire and most of the changelings believed us. With them at our side, we could end the war in a three-way attack. The dragons attacked from the south, the Crystal Empire attacked from the north, and the changelings dealt with assassinations in between. At last, the final battle came. All of us seeking to avenge Twilight and overthrow and asperse her. She thought she was invincible with this shield. She hadn't counted on Caitlyn's being familiar with shields. Most of our forces got through before Arcane snuck on her. Thanks to her, we finally had the bitch. Everyone wanted her dead, but the kill was mine alone. She begged for mercy. I gave none. The battle was over, but there were so many lives lost, so much destruction. With Twilight, her son, and Cadence dead, Florryheart was chosen to be the new leader of Equestria and the Crystal Empire, uniting the lands as one nation, the Equestrian Empire. We buried our dead, fixed our streets, and slowly began to rebuild. 2 years later, during the new year, Taryan and Jewel became engaged. Yet despite it all, I could only feel depressed. Twilight was avenged, but I couldn't save her son. I helped start a war that cost so many lives. I lost my mother and the last of my friends. I had to get away. I had to be alone. And so, one night, I left with not a word. I secluded myself in the Winterbitter Mountains, isolated from the world and left on my own. As I grew older, I became more powerful. I used that power to burn and attack bandits who loved using the area as a hideout spot. Very few survived. I had gathered a large amount of wealth that pleased the greedy side of me. Yet my heart was never satisfied, as loneliness was my only companion. Then one day, he came.
Hi, are you my grandfather Spike?
My grandson had come to find me. His name was Jadan, and both his parents talked about me all the time. And before I know it, I was dragged off to his home, to Diamond City, the shining capital of the dragons. Jadan told me I was his hero growing up. His mother and Queen Florryheart told him that stories of my adventures became legends after all. I'll never forget what it was like to hug my daughter for the first time in over 100 years. It felt magical. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was at home. I felt at peace. There were many good moments, a few sad moments, but ones that were inescapable. But time moved on, as did my life. And now, I await my end, ready for the next journey. As the last of my breath leaves me, and my eyes shut for good, I think about the life I had. And you know what? It was great.